Hey there friends, it's Laurie. Today I'm making a farmhouse bunny, a spring chick, and an Easter bunny wreath. I used mostly Dollar Tree supplies to help keep the cost down, but I did use a few things that I had on hand. As always, I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. Getting started, I'm using a $3 bunny from the Dollar Tree, and it measures 18 by 9.5 inches. I wanted something a little larger and I like the textured finish, but you can always use one of their smaller bunnies. I'm first twisting the cottontail off and then removing the bow. I'm also changing up the hanger, so I'm taking that off as well. The pink is really pretty, but I want mine to be more of a farmhouse Easter bunny, so I'm giving it a coat of white acrylic paint. Now that it's completely dry, I want to give it a bit of a rustic vibe. I'm using a piece of heavy grit sandpaper and I'm sanding around the entire outside edge of my bunny. I first tried with a lighter sandpaper and it only sanded off the white paint. I then moved up to the heavier grit and it took off the white and the pink and it left just a hint of pink around the edges. With my bunny dry, I'm painting the word welcome on the front. I want the paint to match the color of my bunny's bow, and I'm using some of the Dollar Tree burlap ribbon, so this Craft Smart tan paint was a perfect match. To give the bunny a pop of color, I'm adding on some greenery, and I did find some of it at the Dollar Tree. It's plastic, so I wasn't crazy about it, but it ended up working well for this project. I'll be using 4 stems, and on each there's 3 sections, and I just pushed them all tightly together at the top. I then cut all 4 free from the main stem. I'm adding the greenery to the bunny's neck, placing 2 on each side, and then securing them in place with my hot glue gun. I'll be adding a bow in the center, but before I do, because I don't want to crush it, I'm going to turn the bunny over and add on my hanger. I'm using about an 8-inch piece of scrap Dollar Tree nautical rope. I'm making it a hidden hanger on the back and then attaching the 2 ends with my glue gun. To make sure that it doesn't move out of place, I cut a piece of the burlap ribbon long enough to cover the 2 ends. By doing this, there's no worries that the hanger will ever become detached. To make the bow on the front, I first decided how long I wanted the tails to be, and I made mine about 3 inches or so. I then made a 4-inch loop with the ribbon, twisted it, and made a second 4-inch loop, making sure they both matched in size. I gave the ribbon a little pinch in the center, placed a piece of floral wire over it, pulled the sides down tightly, and then twisted it in the back. Now that I have it attached together, I cut both of the ends off at an angle. After snipping off the extra wire on the back of the bow, I used another piece of the burlap ribbon and I made a knot. After cutting it free, I attached the knot in the center and the tails on the back. Now all that's left to do is attach it in the center of the greenery. And with that, my welcome farmhouse bunny is ready for Easter. Today I'm participating in my monthly friend collab group, and it's hosted by my sweet friend Liana from Liana DIY. Our guest host this month is Maria from Crafting with Maria. They both have amazing channels, and you can check them out along with my other crafty friends by clicking on the playlist. I'll have that linked below in my description. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below, leaving me a thumbs up, and to all my returning friends, you know you are the best. Getting started, I'm using 2 wooden Easter eggs from the Dollar Tree. I'm painting the front side of both with my yellow acrylic paint. To help give my chick balance, I'm using one of the eggs and I'm turning it over to the unpainted side. Using an 8-inch piece of Dollar Tree nautical rope, I attached and centered it on the top of the egg. I then attached both sides of the rope, making sure they stayed on the inside edge of the egg. I waited for the glue to cool, and using the same yellow paint, I painted the outside edges of the rope. I'm accenting the outside of both eggs with my pencil. I sketched around the outside edges and then just kind of rubbed the pencil in with my fingers. I'm adding some hair onto my Easter chick, and I'm using 2 strands from a Dollar Tree mop head. I separated both of the strands and then added them together, keeping one piece separate. I folded the group in half, and then using the extra strand, I tied off about 1 inch up from the bottom loops. I cut off the excess and then used my scissors to cut open the loops, and then I gave both ends a little trim. I placed some hot glue over the hanger hole on the top and then attached the wrap piece of the hair over it. I then shortened and cleaned up the ends a bit more. I'm covering that knotted piece on the top of the hair, and I'm using a little daisy that I had on hand. To give the chick some eyes, you can paint them directly on. I'm using 2 small wooden circles, and I picked this package up at Michael's. I painted them both black, and then using the end of a paintbrush and my white acrylic paint, I placed a dot of white on each. For the chick's nose, I'm painting a small wooden heart with some orange acrylic paint. I'm first finding their placement on the egg, and then I'm using my E6000 to attach them. To give my chick some rosy cheeks, I added some blush to the end of a Q-tip, and then I just made some little circles on each side. For the legs, I cut a 12-inch Dollar Tree craft dowel in half, so I have 2 6-inch pieces. I wanted the legs to be a shade lighter than the nose, so I mixed some of the white paint in with the orange, and I gave them both a coat. I placed about 2.5 inches or so onto the egg with the rope, and then I used my hot glue gun to attach them. I added a generous amount of hot glue onto the rope in the legs, and then I placed down the front of the chick. To make my chicks' shoes, I'm using some of the Dollar Tree Baby Shower Favors. They come in pink and blue, and you can use them as is. I wanted mine to look like sneakers, so I sprayed them with some white spray paint. To fill the inside of the shoes, I'm using some of the styrofoam balls. I pressed one onto the top of the shoe to get my size, and then cut it to fit. I added some hot glue inside each shoe, and then I pressed in the styrofoam. With the styrofoam in place, I added some hot glue and attached the two shoes together. I attached the two pieces by placing the end of the dowels into the shoes and pressing them down to the bottom. And to be extra sure that they don't move, I added some hot glue to the back of each. To hide where the shoes and the legs attach, I'm using some Spanish moss that I had on hand. They sell decorative moss at the Dollar Tree, and that will work great too. I added some hot glue around the chick's legs and attached the moss. It's definitely a bit messy, so I used my scissors to clean it up. To finish up, I'm using some of the Farmhouse buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm making two small bows. I added some hot glue to the front of each sneaker and attached them. And now that I'm done, this chick is ready to celebrate spring and Easter. To make my Easter bunny wreath, I'm using one of the wire bunny wreath forms from the Dollar Tree. I bent the ears apart to give myself some extra room. I'm wrapping my bunny form in pink burlap ribbon that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. Depending on what colors you use is the color that you should wrap your wire form in. As you're adding the flowers, it will blend in with your ribbon. To make it easier to work with, I did cut mine into shorter pieces. I placed a couple of sheets of waxed paper under my bunny, and this is just to catch the hot glue drips. Attaching the ribbon is super easy. All you do is add some hot glue onto the form, place down the ribbon, and start wrapping it around. I added on some hot glue here and there as I was working my way around to help hold it in place. As you're wrapping the ribbon around, don't worry if it's not perfect because it'll end up being all hidden in the end. When I came to the end of one ribbon, I cut another piece and continued on. The flowers that I'm using, they have 3 colors in them, and one of them is this light pink, so it's not an exact perfect match to them, but I think they'll all blend together nicely. With the bunny head complete, it's now time to wrap the ears. I'm measuring the ribbon against one of the bunny ears, allowing a couple of extra inches and then cutting out 4 pieces. I added hot glue to the base of one ear and placed down 1 strip of ribbon. I folded the ribbon around the wire, making sure it was facing to the outside of the ear. I then added some hot glue to attach it. If you're using burlap ribbon, be sure to use a finger protector because that hot glue seeps right through it. With the first ribbon attached, I then followed the same instructions for the next 3. I'm wrapping my flowers around the ears, so I need to trim up the burlap. I use my scissors and I cut the edges down to about 1/2 inch. I'm covering my bunny with 12 bunches of these pretty pink hydrangeas that I found at the Dollar Tree. Each stem comes with 5 flower clusters, and I pulled them off of each. On the bottom of each bunch, there is a long piece of stem, and to make them easier to attach, I trimmed it off. I'll be attaching 2 bunches of flowers side by side on the bunny's head. After adding on some hot glue, I placed down the 2 bottoms. After you attach the flowers, you do have to hold them in place for about 20 or 30 seconds, allowing the hot glue to cool. If you're looking to make more of a traditional color Easter bunny, change up the pink hydrangeas to white. With the bunny's head complete, it's now time to cover the ears. I'm doing this differently than gluing down the ends. I'm actually opening the flower up and wrapping it around the ear. I'm starting at the top of the ear. I added on some hot glue and then wrapped the flower around it. Just like the bunny's head, you need to hold it in place for a couple of seconds to give the hot glue a chance to set up. I continue on working my way around the ear, wrapping the flower around it and then hot gluing it into place. With one side complete, I then followed the same instructions for the other. With one of the ears complete, I'm now adding the flowers to the second. I started by adding my first one on the top and then followed it up with the rest of the flowers. Now that the bunny's complete, you can add on all types of accents. You can even add on a sign, but for me, I'm keeping it super simple and just adding on a bow. I'm using 3 different ribbons: a 2.5 inch wired Easter ribbon, a 2.5 inch sheer pink wired ribbon, and both of these came from the Dollar Tree. To pull out the green in my flowers, I'm also adding in a 2.5 inch wired green ribbon. I already had this on hand. I'm using my bow maker. I picked this up a while back on Amazon. Starting with my Easter ribbon, I'm placing down about an inch and making 4 5-inch loops. When I'm done, I finish off by cutting off a 1-inch tail. I'm now adding on the pink sheer ribbon, and once again I place down about an inch, and now I'm making 4 4-inch loops. I then finish off with a 1-inch tail. I'm adding on the green ribbon, and this time I'm making a 9-inch tail, following it up with 4 3.5-inch loops. I then finished my bow up with another 9-inch tail. I'm attaching my bow together using a piece of floral wire. I place it around the center, pull it down tightly, and then twist it in the back. When I was done, I then fluffed out the loops. To make the center of my bow a little more decorative, I used a piece of the green ribbon and made a knot in it. I hot glued it in the center and the ends on the back. And then I snipped off the excess wire. I placed the bow in the center of the bunny's head and hot glued it into place. Now that I'm done, this Easter bunny wreath is ready to hang. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun crafting with me. Please be sure to check out the playlist, and if you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I'll leave a bunch of different home decor ideas for you at the end of this video, as well as in my description below. I hope you all have a safe and amazing day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody!